Hi guys, it's your boy BDR here, and I'm back with another AQROS discussion video. So this upcoming Friday, there will be balance updates to several classes and a couple of enhancements. As you see right here, this is basically the full preview. Now they may, I'll just say, subject to change. Maybe they're just like leaving out or like they're like keeping a couple of things secret up until, Friday when they do drop the balance update. So keep that in mind. So first we have Phantom Chronomancer. Now everyone has been asking for a Phantom Chronomancer buff ever since it dropped into the game. It's just mad underwhelming, especially for a class that's like locked behind a $20 to $30 calendar and is locked behind a 6KC paywall. I did my overview on it, and it's just like it basically just feels like why would I use this? And I have Chrono Shadow Slayer, right then and there. So what they're saying is that it will, the mana management will be adjusted and enshroud functionality. So what they kind of mean by mana adjustment is that, the final hours heal, the one that costs a whopping 50 mana. And what enshroud does is increase your dodge by 40% while giving you an HLT for 10 seconds. So enshroud is pretty good, for the dodge build, against stuff like, Primarch, the Lich, Lich Lord, bosses like that. I feel like, with the mana cost, you gotta reduce it to 30 or 35 at the very least. That's the only way. That's the best case scenario. Reduce the mana, even like something like 25, maybe, but they're probably not gonna go that far. I kind of see it, 30 to 35 mana cost, but it has to be done here. And in Shroud, I would just say give it more dodge. I would say give it like 60% dodge or even 70% dodge and get rid of the HLT. But we'll see what happens. So yeah, that's what happened with Phantom Chronomancer. Now next we have Hollowborn Vindicator. Now everyone, this is another class that's kind of like underwhelming on release, especially since you have to go through a 4-week ultra grind to get it. If you guys don't know what Born Anew does, it's basically call out to the Shadow Fiend to become hollow for 15 seconds, increasing your outgoing damage by 100, crit chance by 40, and haste by 10%. Also applies Decay for 4 seconds, negating all non-lifesteal healing you receive, and costs 50% of your current HP. Now, Hollowborn Vindicator, now it says Born Anew will no longer be affected by boost, now applies conditional safeguard. More of that happening, but I'm glad they're looking into Hollowborn Vindicator because that kind of just means like, they're hearing out the community. They've been saying ever since the class has been released that this class just feels like another underwhelming endgame class. And like you don't really see it anywhere. Really, especially when you have the Chronos, even like Guardian and Lich. You could definitely make a case for like both of them being better than Hollowborn Vindicator. Lich, but hopefully with this, Hollowborn Vindicator can get some, chance to shine. Now next we have Dragon Knight, Drakkar Knight, Draco Knight. They're all the same class. They're saying that they're going to improve the soloing performance. I really hope so because it's like with Draco Knight, it just feels like why would I use this class when when Dragon of Time is right there, when Arachnomancer is right there. Like, you gotta look at some of the best DOT classes that this game offers. Dragon of Time, Interstellar Knight, Shadow Stalker, Arachnomancer, Interstellar. It's like, if you have those classes, there's no point of using Draco Knight. There really isn't. Like, it just feels like a mid-game DOT class. It's like the damage, the non-DOT damage, it's good, paired up with Ravenous. We'll see what happens to Ravenous. Talk about Ravenous in a bit. I feel like they really gotta like increase the DOTs. Like I should be seeing like probably like 1 to even like 4K DOTs. It's just increase the DOT damage, increase the overall damage of the class. Like truly make it like a soloing class that like makes it worth the 2.5K ACs. That is because that's the reason why not a lot of people have it. It's just that, that 2.5K, price tag really has people like, I don't know, man. They have some stuff they could work with. Draco Knight, can reduce the opponent's magical resistance and DOT resistance by 15%, by 50% for 15 seconds, magical resistance by 30. It could also have stackable DOTs. You also have, Dragon's Might, which can reduce their physical damage, and crit chance by 25%. Plus, a 20% chance to stun. I'll say probably put that to like 30. Increase the DOT chances and all that. Increase the intellect. Just like really make it seem like, they have the tools to like really make it like a pretty good soloer. Well, you just have to see. Alright, so next we have Chaos Slayer, the Chaos Slayer variant. So what they're going to do is just make sure, the Chaos Blight stacks will be faster, and they'll also give a small bonus against Chaos monsters. Like, it's just like, when I see this, it's going to be like, they're probably going to like change up the skills and make sure they're probably like every skill from now on will apply Chaos Blight. So you have a faster and easier way to get to the 30 stacks of Chaos Blight. That's what I, probably think will happen. Next we have Alpha Omega, which just says gestures broadly. I'm not sure if this is like a joke or not. They're probably gonna change how the class like looks and then keep the skills the same. Or it's just gonna be the same thing like Rust Bucket added Oriole. We'll see what happens. Now next is Death Knight Lord. Now Death Knight Lord is an interesting one because it says that it's going to improve farming and debuffing performance. And looking at Death Knight Lord, it definitely is a debuffing class. It has Curse of Grimskull, which can inflict a damage over time that could slow the foe's haste and force them to attack you. So it has a taunt. That's pretty much it. Then you have, Serment. And right here, it's like, it's a debuffing class. Mainly people are worried that AQ Roads might get rid of its taunt. It's focused. Right there. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but they said it's going to improve farming and debuffing performance. So if you're going to improve it, it's debuffing. Probably make it more of a debuffing class. So yeah, definitely I don't think they're going to get rid of the taunt on Death Knight Lord. And let's just say worst case scenario, if they do, comment sections right there. All right, next we have Naval Commander. Now Naval Commander, I mean, it kind of makes sense. We're in September. I think, you look at last December, they did, buff all of the December classes, Frost Barbarians, Frost Spirit Reaver. They get buffed some, since it's Talk Like a Pirate Day, Naval Commander is going to get buffed. They're going to improve its farming, make it more of a, worth it class for like a 2K AC price tag. Definitely make it a, definitely going to try to make it, a good farmer. Improved farming and debuffing performance. I did do an overview of, Naval Commander. And not gonna lie, it just doesn't, it's just like, it's like a good mid-game farmer. Hopefully that changes with the updates. It does have some debuffs, with its strike and parry, which can decrease outgoing damage by 20% for 10 seconds. Flintlock Barrage can, decrease the outgoing damage by 20% for 10 seconds. Then you have, Swashbuckled, which can increase your target's damage taken by 30% for 10 seconds. And has a chance of, it could also stun the target. And, has focus. Naval Commander. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the class. These are all the classes that they're going to be looking at and also giving the balance changes to. Now, let's get on with the main event, shall we? You know, the big $1 million question is Ravenous is going to be reworked. Now I understand to most people are quaking in their boots. I'm also quaking in my boots a little bit because it's just like I don't want to see Ravenous get put in the mud, especially especially like the grind, because I remember like people were upset at the Dauntless nerf, going from like I believe it was like 600 and like what 67 damage to 570. Like I can understand people being upset by that, especially the grind that you have to go through. You have to go through the hardest fight in the game in Malgore, weekly ultra to get it, kind of like a 4 or 5 week grind for Dauntless. It's just like with Ravenous, you have to do a whole bunch of Nullgap farming, a whole bunch of RNG, not a very pleasant farming experience. In some eyes, people see it as like the best enhancement in the game. So if you guys don't know what Ravenous does, is that it has a 100% chance to activate on auto attack, 10-second cooldown. It deals 75% hybrid damage and recovers 15 mana. Applies Ravenous to the target for 10 seconds, which gives them -5 haste, -5 crit chance, -5 dodge, and -5 damage boost. And applies Execute to yourself for 10 seconds, 5% haste, 5% crit chance, 5% dodge, and 5% and +5% damage boost. All skills deal 0.9 bonus damage for each 1% of the target's missing HP. This includes normal heals but not HOT effects. So how can they rework this without like, without dooming, without like going into, without thinking like a defeatist? Because that's what a lot of people are like. People fear that like Ravenous is gonna be like gradually nerfed. It's gonna get nerfed to the ground. They're gonna do Ravenous dirtier than Dauntless. Like let's like when we see the word rework, we shouldn't think. I think that's like a problem within the community. It's like when they hear rework, it's like, oh no, nerf, nerf, nerf. It's like, guys, let's calm down. Let's calm down. Let's calm down. Rework. I mean, it could probably be a buff, really. Like maybe they'll give the player and maybe they'll give the player more buffs, or maybe they'll give the more debuffs to the opponent. And maybe this is just maybe skills will deal 1.0% bonus damage for each 2% of the target's missing HP. It's just that I see they're probably gonna give like they're definitely gonna like change the design of how Ravenous works. It's just that hopefully we could just hope that the rework and Ravenous can still be the same, just some slight changes right there. But I understand what people are going through. Like people are like scared that it's gonna get nerfed to the ground. I don't think it's gonna get nerfed to the ground. Hopefully I'm not wrong on Friday. Then lastly, Valiance is gonna get buffed. A small luck increase and a reduced cooldown. What I think is probably gonna happen here, because with Valiant, it has a 20-second cooldown. I could see it being reduced to either 10 or 15-second cooldown. One of those two. Probably a 15-second cooldown, because currently Valiance is at a 20-second cooldown. So it's definitely going to go to like 10 or 15, but most likely 15, leaning towards 15-second cooldown. Now, small luck increase with Valiance, it applies 1.3, times strength, intellect, dexterity, wisdom, endurance, and 1.1 times luck. So what's probably going to happen is that luck will probably be increased to 1.2 or 1.3 like all the others. That's probably what's going to happen with Valiant. I feel like the luck is just going to go to 1.3 just to match it with the others. And the cooldown will be 15 seconds instead of 20. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for this discussion video. How do you guys feel about, these upcoming changes? What do you guys think is going to happen to these classes? Any predictions, leave it down in the comment section below. Hopefully, you know, you know, Ravenous does not get, buried to the ground, you know, to buff up Valiance. I don't it like I feel like that's like a bad developer decision to like knock down one enhancement to hype up the other, knowing you could just hype up both at the same time. I feel like hopefully, the devs, the class council does not go down that route of just let's just bury Ravenous to the ground to make Valiance look good. I think that's like a genuine terrible decision. I feel like that's kind of like, bad, design. That goes for like any game as well. I feel like if side note here, I feel like a game shouldn't, knock down one thing to, nerf one thing to like, hype up or sell the other. That shouldn't be the case. You should make all your enhancements like equally as, good. Have, they're good in their own way, not knock one down to, boost up the other. So yeah, we'll see what happens on Friday. How you guys feel about Ravenous? Do you guys think it's gonna get nerfed? Do you guys think it's gonna get buffed to infinity? Comment section, right down below. And yeah, hi guys, out.